Hi there. Have you ever felt a chill running down your spine while reading about something ancient, something that should be buried in the history books but somehow continues to resonate in the present? Today, I want to invite you on a dark journey, one that will take us to the most spine-chilling corners of history, where facts and legends intertwine, creating nightmares that, for some reason, we never seem to forget completely. Have you heard about the curse of the Pharaohs? Or perhaps the legend of the Sinister Barber of Paris, who was said to sell pies made of human flesh in the heart of the city? Throughout the centuries, fear and mystery have woven stories that refuse to disappear, as if something in them touches a deep, hidden part of our imagination. But here's the most fascinating part: some of these stories that sound like myths or tales to scare children have a real basis. We're not just talking about urban legends or superstitions, but documented events that, at the time, shocked society. And what's more unsettling, there are questions that, to this day, remain unanswered. Have you ever wondered what really happened inside the USS Eldridge during World War II? The rumors about the so-called Philadelphia experiment speak of invisibility, teleportation, and terrifying consequences for the crew. But the question remains, what actually happened? Or was it all a setup, a smokescreen to hide something even more sinister? Throughout this journey, we will explore some of the most disturbing mysteries in history. Maybe, just maybe, we'll uncover a clue that others have overlooked, a small truth hidden in the shadows of time. So join me on this journey. Let's dust off these dark tales and let the past, with all its ghosts, come back to life. But beware, what we discover might keep you up at night. Are you ready? Let's begin. Story: The Curse of the Pharaoh. For centuries, the tombs of the Egyptian pharaohs have been seen as portals to another world, a place where the wealth and power of a lost kingdom rest in eternal peace. But not all tombs stayed sealed forever. Some were desecrated by archaeologists and adventurers in search of glory or perhaps the mysteries they concealed. And of all the stories that have emerged from the sands of Egypt, none is as fascinating or terrifying as the curse of Tutankhamun. Let me take you back to 1922, to the Valley of the Kings, where British archaeologist Howard Carter and his team were about to make a discovery that would forever change the way the world viewed ancient Egypt. After years of tireless searching and being on the brink of giving up, Carter finally found what appeared to be the entrance to a tomb that had been hidden for over 3,000 years. This tomb belonged to a boy king, Tutankhamun, whose reign was brief but whose legacy would be immortal. I remember reading about that exact moment when Carter made a small hole in the sealed door of the tomb and, holding a candle, looked inside for the first time. When asked if he saw anything, he whispered, "Yes, wonderful things." But what he didn't say was that, along with the riches and golden treasures, he might have also released something more sinister. Soon after the tomb was opened, strange things began to happen. Lord Carnarvon, the financial backer of the expedition, was the first to fall. A few weeks after entering the tomb, he fell ill with an inexplicable fever. It all started with a simple mosquito bite, which quickly became infected and turned into something much more dangerous. Carnarvon died on April 5, 1923, at the Continental Savoy Hotel in Cairo, after days of agony. And here's where things start to get really strange. Legend has it that at the exact moment of his death, the lights in Cairo flickered and then went out completely, plunging the city into darkness. Even his dog, who was thousands of miles away in England, began to howl desperately and died at the same time as its master. Coincidence? Perhaps. But many began to whisper about an ancient curse. And it wasn't just Carnarvon. As the months went by, more members of the team who had participated in the opening of the tomb began to fall ill or die under mysterious circumstances. One of Carter's team members, George J. Gould, an American millionaire, died shortly after visiting the tomb from a fever similar to the one that claimed Lord Carnarvon. Arthur Mace, another key assistant in the excavation, also died suddenly. Carnarvon's doctor, Sir Douglas Reed, who had taken X-rays of Tutankhamun's body, died from a mysterious illness in 1924. Newspapers of the time seized upon this chain of deaths and began to openly talk about the Pharaoh's curse. The public was fascinated by the idea that the ancient Egyptian gods might be exacting revenge on those who had desecrated the sacred tombs of their protectors. After all, at the entrance of Tutankhamun's tomb, there was an inscription that warned, "Death will come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the pharaoh." But was it really a curse that caused these deaths? Or could there have been a more rational explanation behind these events? This is where science comes into play. Some researchers have suggested that the ancient Egyptians, aware of the power of superstition, might have placed toxic substances inside the tombs to protect them from looters. It has been speculated that lethal bacteria or spores, such as aspergillosis, could have been present in the sealed chambers for centuries, and when the tomb was opened, they infected the explorers. This could explain the fevers and infections suffered by several victims. Could it be that the true enemy was not a curse, but a microscopic foe? Despite these explanations, the curse continued to be a topic of conversation for decades. The list of affected people kept growing, and each new incident seemed to fuel the legend even more. Even Carnarvon's wife fell victim to misfortune, dying in a traffic accident shortly after the tomb's opening. However, not everyone involved in the expedition succumbed to the curse. Howard Carter himself, who led the excavation and was the first to enter the tomb, lived many years after the events. In fact, he died of natural causes in 1939 at the age of 64, which seemed to contradict the idea of an unrelenting curse. Yet, some suggest that his passion for archaeology and constant proximity to Egyptian artifacts might have made him immune to the curse's power, or perhaps he was simply lucky. What continues to intrigue me is how this story has remained in our collective imagination for so long. Despite scientific explanations, the idea of a curse still captures our attention. Is it because, deep down, we all fear the unknown? Or because, in an age where everything seems explainable, we cling to the few things that still elude our understanding? At its core, we may never know the complete truth. Some will say it was a series of coincidences, that the stress and harsh working conditions in the desert explain the deaths. Others, more superstitious, will continue to believe in the curse's power. But what is undeniable is that since the opening of Tutankhamun's tomb, history has continued to fascinate us, reminding us that some secrets of the past are perhaps better left buried forever. As we move away from this story, I can't help but wonder, how many other curses, from other cultures and eras, remain hidden, waiting to be unleashed? What other mysteries of the past still lurk in the shadows, ready to exact their price? And perhaps, most unsettling of all, are the questions that, despite scientific advancements and modern skepticism, will never be answered. Like the inscription in the Pharaoh's tomb, some warnings are best not ignored. Was Tutankhamun's curse real? That, dear friend, is for you to decide. Story: The Sinister Barber of Paris. Throughout history, Paris has been known as the City of Light, a place of art, culture, and romance. But beneath its charming glow, it has also been the scene of dark tales, some so macabre it's hard to believe they could have ever happened. One of the most unsettling is the legend of the Sinister Barber of Paris, a tale that, though it sounds like a nightmare, has lingered in the city's collective memory for centuries. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this: Paris, the 14th century. The streets are bustling with life, but also with misery. The Black Death has ravaged the population, poverty is everywhere, and the lives of ordinary citizens are marked by uncertainty. It is a time when desperation and fear blend with superstition, and rumors spread as quickly as the wind. It is in this environment that a story begins to emerge that would chill anyone's blood. On Rue de Marmozettes, near the Notre Dame Cathedral, there was said to be a barber whose skill with a razor was unmatched. His small barber shop was unassuming but had a steady stream of customers. However, it wasn't just his skill that made him famous, there was also something much darker. The rumor was that not all customers who entered his shop left alive. The story goes that the barber had an accomplice, the butcher who lived next door. Together, they allegedly concocted a plan so macabre it's hard not to shiver at the thought. The men who entered the barber's shop for a haircut or shave never returned. Why? According to the legend, the barber would kill them while they were in his chair, slitting their throats with his sharp razor. Then, their bodies would fall through a secret trapdoor that connected his shop to the butcher's next door. There, the accomplice would dismember the corpses and use them to make meat pies, which he then sold to unsuspecting passers-by. It's a chilling story, isn't it? But what makes it even more unsettling is that, for centuries, people believed there was some truth to it. In medieval Paris, meat was a luxury that not everyone could afford. So the idea that a butcher might offer delicious pies at reasonable prices was, in itself, attractive. But few knew the horror that, according to the legend, lurked behind those pies. Can you imagine the fear among the citizens when rumors began to spread? How each time someone disappeared near Rue de Marmozettes, people started whispering about the barber and his butcher accomplice. The tension in the city must have been palpable, and the legend grew to become something impossible to ignore. What's fascinating about this story is how fear and paranoia can transform into such a powerful myth that, even centuries later, it remains told. But what led people of that time to believe such a ghastly conspiracy was real? It's hard to know for certain, but the context in which they lived offers some clues. The Black Death had devastated Europe, and with it, not only did a large part of the population die, but also trust in authorities and social structures. Death was everywhere, and people sought explanations for the horrors they experienced. Tales of atrocious crimes and cannibalism became a kind of outlet for collective fears. And in a city like Paris, where poverty and desperation reigned, a story like that of the Sinister Barber spread like wildfire. But was it just a legend? Some historical records seem to support the idea that there was, at least, an investigation into this story. It is said that King Philip IV of France ordered an inquiry after receiving multiple complaints about the disappearance of several men on Rue de Marmozettes. According to these accounts, the terrible truth was discovered, and as punishment, both the barber and the butcher were sentenced to death, and their establishments were destroyed. However, documentary evidence is scarce, and many historians believe that, if true, the story has been exaggerated over time. This is where myth and reality begin to blur. Was there really a murderous barber in Paris, or is this just one of those stories people create to make sense of dark times? The fact is that, to this day, the legend of the Sinister Barber remains part of Parisian folklore. In fact, some say that if you walk down Rue de Marmozettes on a silent night, you can still hear the echoes of those macabre times, as if the ghosts of the unfortunate customers still haunt the street. One of the most fascinating aspects of this story is how it has remained alive for centuries. Paris has changed a lot since the 14th century, but the fascination with the macabre, with stories of murder and mystery, remains as strong as ever. Perhaps it's because these stories allow us to explore our own fears, those dark parts of our nature that we prefer not to confront. But let's return for a moment to the legend itself. What continues to intrigue me is how something as grotesque as the idea of pies made from human flesh could become a popular belief. How desperate were people to believe that such a thing was possible? And, even more unsettling, what if the legend were true? How many people might have unknowingly consumed the result of one of history's most horrific crimes? As the story of the Sinister Barber has evolved over time, it has been adapted and modified in various forms. A more modern version of the myth can be found in the famous play and later film Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, an adaptation that moves the story to 19th-century London. Although not directly inspired by the Sinister Barber of Paris, it shares many elements in common: revenge, murder, and cannibalism as a final act of desperation. This leads me to another important question: why do such stories resonate so deeply in our culture? Why are we so fascinated by tales of horrific crimes, especially those involving cannibalism and conspiracy? Partly, I believe it's because they force us to confront the limits of human morality, to question how far we might go in times of desperation. Now, I want you to reflect on something. Could it be that the story of the Sinister Barber of Paris is not more than a moral warning disguised as a myth? In an era when trust was limited, and survival often meant making unthinkable choices, perhaps this legend is just a way of reminding us what we are capable of when desperation consumes us. Perhaps the real horror is not in the barber's actions but in the fact that, deep down, any of us could have been him under the same circumstances. At the end of the day, whether the story is true or not may be less important. What really matters is how this legend has survived, as a reminder that, deep within our nature, there is always a struggle between civilization and chaos, between what is morally right and what we are willing to do to survive. And you, what do you think? Did the Sinister Barber of Paris really exist, or is it just another warning about the dangers of human desperation? How many other stories, hidden in the dark corners of history, are waiting to be discovered? Paris is full of secrets, and sometimes, it's better not to try to unearth them. Story: The Philadelphia Experiment. The Philadelphia Experiment is one of those mysteries that seem straight out of a science fiction novel but has endured as an urban legend both fascinating and unsettling. Often, the best stories are those filled with unknowns, with small gaps in reality where imagination can run free. And this experiment is undoubtedly one of those cases. Imagine for a moment that we're in 1943, at the height of World War II. The major powers are desperate to gain any technological advantage that might help them win the war. The race for innovation is frantic, and the world's brightest minds are working on secret projects that challenge human understanding. It is in this context that one of the most disturbing stories of the 20th century arises: the disappearance and alleged teleportation of a U.S. Navy destroyer, the USS Eldridge. The story begins at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, where, according to rumors, a secret experiment known as Project Rainbow was being conducted. The experiment's goal was clear: to make a ship invisible to enemy radar. The idea itself sounds incredible, but in wartime anything seemed possible. Using advanced electromagnetic technology, the scientists involved believed they could manipulate the ship's energy fields to achieve this result. The USS Eldridge, a newly commissioned escort destroyer, was chosen to participate in this experiment. Up to this point, the story seems somewhat plausible, albeit incredible. But what happened next has fueled decades of speculation and conspiracy theories. According to witnesses and rumors that emerged later, on October 28, 1943, the USS Eldridge underwent this test at the Philadelphia harbor. The generators aboard the ship were activated, and suddenly, something strange occurred. It is said that a green fog enveloped the ship, and then, in an instant, it completely vanished from sight. But not just from radar, as originally intended. It physically disappeared from the location. What makes this story even more disconcerting is that the USS Eldridge not only disappeared from Philadelphia but supposedly reappeared hundreds of miles away, at the port of Norfolk, Virginia, for a few minutes, before returning to Philadelphia. We're talking about teleportation, a concept that, although it sounds like science fiction, has been part of the most outlandish theories surrounding the Philadelphia experiment. But here's where things start to get truly unsettling. According to some accounts, when the ship reappeared in Philadelphia, something had gone terribly wrong. The crew members were in a state of utter chaos. Some of them, according to legend, were fused with the ship's metal structures, as if their bodies had been trapped in the very matter of the destroyer upon returning from their mysterious journey. Other crew members reportedly suffered devastating psychological effects, becoming completely insane or afflicted with inexplicable amnesia. Some reports even mention that certain sailors became permanently invisible or vanished altogether in the days following the experiment. Now, how is it possible that something so extraordinary, something that defies all known laws of physics, could happen? The details are so vague and shrouded in myths that it's hard to separate fact from fiction. But there are some names often mentioned in connection with the experiment. One of them is the famous scientist Nikola Tesla, who supposedly was involved in developing the electromagnetic technology used. Another is Albert Einstein, whose work on the unified field theory, a theory that attempts to unify gravity and electromagnetism, is said to have been fundamental in conceptualizing this experiment. But here's the big question: did it really happen? Or is it just a fabricated story, an urban legend that got out of control? What's fascinating about the Philadelphia experiment is that, although there is no tangible evidence it occurred, the story has remained alive over the decades, fueled by supposed eyewitness testimonies and the mystery surrounding wartime secret projects. One of the main drivers of the story was a man named Carl M. Allen, who in the 1950s claimed to have witnessed the events that took place that fateful day. According to him, what he saw was so terrifying that he decided to share it with the world. But, as with many of these stories, there is no clear evidence to support his claims. However, there are other elements that make the story hard to dismiss entirely. During World War II, governments around the world were conducting secret experiments with advanced technologies. Radar, for example, was a relatively new technology at the time, and it's not unreasonable to think that the US Navy was exploring ways to enhance its stealth capabilities. Additionally, the USS Eldridge was a real ship, commissioned and serving during the war, which lends the story some degree of credibility. On the other hand, skeptics point out that much of the Philadelphia experiment legend is based on rumors and second-hand accounts. Many of the most striking details, such as bodies fused with the ship's metal, come from unreliable sources and lack any form of corroboration. Furthermore, the US Navy has repeatedly denied that such an experiment took place, arguing that the technologies involved in the story simply did not exist at that time. So, what do we do with this story? Do we dismiss it as pure fiction, or do we keep it in the corner of our minds where we store unresolved mysteries? I think what's most interesting about the Philadelphia experiment is not whether it really happened or not, but what it reveals about our fascination with the unknown and our need to believe in something beyond our understanding. There is something deeply unsettling about the idea that our own governments could be involved in experiments that defy the laws of physics, that could open doors to what we don't even fully understand. And if true, what implications would it have? If we have truly mastered teleportation or invisibility, what other secrets might be hiding? What also catches my attention is how this story continues to fuel people's imagination, appearing in movies, books, and conspiracy theories on the internet. As human beings, we have a tendency to fill gaps with extraordinary stories, especially when it comes to technology we don't understand. The Philadelphia experiment, like Area 51 or the Bermuda Triangle, is one of those stories that thrives on mystery, on the fact that there are more questions than answers. And perhaps that's the most important thing about this tale. It's not so much whether the experiment occurred or not, but the fact that it reminds us that the world is full of unknowns, of mysteries we have yet to solve. Science has advanced a lot, but there are dark places, corners of reality where we don't have all the answers, and that's something we'll never stop exploring, no matter how much we try. As we leave behind the story of the Philadelphia experiment, one question lingers in the air. If this experiment could have been possible in 1943, what else are governments and scientific agencies secretly investigating today? What new technologies or discoveries might be waiting to be revealed, or perhaps, hidden forever? We may never know, or perhaps, as so often happens in history, the truth will come to light in the most unexpected way. Story: The Green Children of Woolpit. In a small, quiet corner of England, the village of Woolpit has earned its place in history due to one of the most enigmatic and fascinating stories ever to emerge from the English countryside. I'm talking about the legend of the Green Children of Woolpit, a tale that has intrigued historians, folklorists, and curious minds alike for centuries. What makes this story particularly intriguing is the blend of reality and mystery surrounding these strange children who appeared one day in the woods. Imagine, if you will, The setting, England, the 12th century, at the height of the Middle Ages. The fields are shrouded in mist, and the air is thick with the scent of earth and fresh grass. Woolpit is a small rural settlement, with stone houses and thatched roofs, and a community living a simple, traditional life. But the calm of this village would be disrupted by an event so rare that it quickly became a local legend. The story begins with a series of sightings of very strange children who, according to reports, were found by some peasants while working in the fields near a series of wolf traps, which is how the village got its name, Woolpit. The children, a boy and a girl, were described as having green-colored skin, a hue no one in the village had ever seen before. They were of unusual appearance and wore clothes made of an unknown material. When they were found, they were disoriented, fearful, and apparently starving. The peasants took them to the village, where they were received with a mix of amazement and concern. At that time, the village chief decided it would be best to take the children to the home of the local lord, a man named Sir Richard of Caen. Sir Richard, known for his wisdom and benevolence, ensured that the children received proper care and attention. During their stay, the villagers attempted to communicate with them, but the children spoke a language no one understood. The story becomes even more intriguing when we consider that, as the children adapted to their new life in Woolpit, their green skin began to gradually fade. Over time, their colors normalized, and the children began to speak English, but their stories and origins remained a mystery. According to some accounts, the children claimed they came from a place called St. Martin's Land, a land that, curiously, did not seem to match any known location in the world at that time. The green boy, unfortunately, did not survive long after arriving in Woolpit. He died shortly after adapting to the new environment, but the green girl lived a longer life. Over time, she married a local man and fully integrated into the community. However, the story of her life remains enigmatic, and details of how she adapted to the world are largely unknown. So, what's behind this mysterious story? Did these children really come from a strange and unknown place, or is there a more logical explanation? Various researchers and theorists have tried to find answers over the years. Some suggest that the children might have been orphans from a foreign culture that arrived in England at a time when international contact was limited. Perhaps they came from a community that had separated from mainstream society and had developed a greenish skin due to an unusual diet or some unknown medical condition. Another theory proposed is that the children could have been from a community suffering from a disease affecting skin pigmentation. Chlorosis, a condition that causes a greenish color in the skin due to iron deficiency, has been mentioned as a possible explanation. This condition, combined with an unusual diet, might have produced the green appearance described in the reports. It has also been hypothesized that the children could have been from a community that had lived in isolation for so long that they had developed unusual physical characteristics. This theory suggests that the children were simply from a population that had evolved differently due to their unique environment and that the story of their green skin might have been an exaggeration or misinterpretation of their unusual skin characteristics. However, the most fascinating aspect of this legend is the mention of St. Martin's Land. Some theorists have suggested that this could be a reference to an alternate land or a mythical place, such as an underground kingdom or a parallel dimension. Others have interpreted this as a sign that the children might have come from a remote or unknown region, possibly from a land beyond the known borders at that time. The influence of popular culture has also played a significant role in perpetuating this story. The legend of the Green Children of Woolpit has been adapted in various forms over the years, appearing in books, films, and other entertainment media. These modern accounts have helped keep the story alive, giving it an air of mystery and fascination that continues to capture people's imaginations. But beyond the theories and speculations, what truly makes this story captivating is the fact that it remains an unsolved mystery. The lack of concrete evidence and the multiple interpretations have led to a variety of explanations, ranging from the most scientific to the most fantastical. Ultimately, the Green Children of Woolpit remain an enigma that challenges our understanding and invites us to explore the limits of our imagination. What is particularly fascinating is how this story reflects our fascination with the unknown and our desire to find answers to the inexplicable. Mysteries like the Green Children of Woolpit challenge us to question what we know and to explore possibilities beyond our immediate understanding. We may never know the truth behind the story of the Green Children of Woolpit, but that's what makes their legend so powerful. It reminds us that, in the vast and complex tapestry of history, there are always dark and mysterious corners waiting to be uncovered. And as we continue to search for answers, the story of the Green Children serves as a reminder that reality can sometimes be stranger and more astonishing than we can imagine. So, as we move away from this tale, I invite you to reflect on what mystery means in our lives. Why are we so drawn to these stories of the unknown? What drives us to seek answers to what we cannot understand? Ultimately, perhaps it is the quest itself that keeps us moving, the idea that there is always something more beyond, waiting to be discovered. And maybe, in some forgotten corner of history, there are more mysteries waiting to be unearthed, more stories like the Green Children of Woolpit that we have yet to fully comprehend. What do you think? Do you believe that one day we will unravel all the secrets hidden in the shadows of our past? Or perhaps, like the Green Children, some mysteries are destined to remain forever in the twilight, challenging us to imagine and dream beyond what we know. At the end of our journey through these dark corners of history, it's inevitable that we're left with a blend of fascination and reflection. From the Pharaohs' curse that has traversed centuries of mystery, to the sinister Parisian barber and the enigmatic Philadelphia experiment, to the intriguing Green Children of Woolpit, each of these stories invites us to explore the limits of our knowledge and question our understanding of what is possible. What is fascinating about these tales is how, despite the distance in time and space, they all share a common element: mystery. These stories have endured not only because they challenge our expectations but because they allow us to glimpse what might have been and force us to confront our own beliefs about the world. First, we have the Pharaohs' curse, a chilling reminder of how history and superstition can intertwine in a narrative that defies logic. Although many of the events attributed to the curse can be explained by more mundane causes, the idea of a supernatural force pursuing those who disturb eternal rest continues to capture our imagination. Then there is the sinister Parisian barber, a disturbing portrait of the human mind taken to extremes. The fact that a man could use his profession to commit such atrocious acts is a sobering reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places. Through this story, we confront the terror that can arise from normality and routine, and we are forced to question the true nature of those around us. The Philadelphia experiment takes us to the frontier of science and science fiction, challenging our conceptions of what is possible. Although the story may be filled with speculation and theories, what it leaves us with is a profound sense of wonder and curiosity about the hidden potential of technology and human knowledge. And finally, the Green Children of Woolpit, who remain an enigma wrapped in legend and folklore. The blend of historical elements with the inexplicable creates a narrative that invites us to explore the boundary between the real and the imaginary, reminding us that sometimes, the most captivating stories are those without clear answers. So, what have we gained from exploring these tales? Firstly, we have gained a deeper appreciation for the power of history and narrative. Stories like these challenge us to look beyond the surface, to question our beliefs, and to explore the unknown with an open mind. Moreover, these tales show us that while history is full of verifiable facts and events, it is also populated with mysteries that defy our understanding. They remind us that sometimes, the value of a story lies not in absolute truth but in its ability to inspire and provoke thought. I invite you to reflect on what we've explored together. What has impressed you most about these stories? How have they made you feel? Sometimes, the answer isn't in unraveling every mystery but in allowing ourselves to be surprised and amazed by the mystery itself. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which of these stories has impacted you the most? Do you have any theories or reflections on what we've discussed? Your opinion is valuable, and by sharing it, we not only enrich this conversation but also keep alive the flame of curiosity and wonder that these stories have provided. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the darkest and most fascinating corners of history. Remember, the world is full of mysteries waiting to be discovered, and each of us has the power to explore and question what surrounds us. Until next time, keep searching, keep questioning, and above all, keep marveling at the amazing and mysterious universe we live in.